Hello there, boys and girls. Greetings. Welcome back, humans, mammals, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and you're here for another dose of the hot salts with the most requested review I've ever had. And surprisingly, it's not an overpowered tank that everyone wants to watch dominate. It's this bundle of nerves called the IS-8, the Tier 9 Russian heavy tank. Or should I call it Russian heavy medium? Because that's exactly what it is. If you're first time up a tech tree and you're playing this tank and you've been playing the IS-3 before it, and all these other KV-1s and Russian heavy tanks in the IS, and you've rolled up to this thing and gone, what's happened to me? Why can't I play World of Tanks anymore? Don't worry, you're not alone. There are so many other humans that have sent me requests on this and worried about it. It's a fragile little numpty. It's a tough tank to drive if you're not a little bit more experienced than the norm. It's got brilliant maneuverability for a heavy tank. It's best in class in terms of traverse and turret traverse. It does have the turret traverse of the Conqueror is actually a touch quicker, but you've got better traverse numbers, and that's the only one that you really have to worry about. The M103 is getting closer, but again, not as close. You've got a low profile, or lowish. You are the lowest profile in your tier for Tier 9 heavies. It's not as sneaky low as some of the others, but it is pretty bloody low anyway. And you have 50 kilometers an hour as a speed limit. You don't have incredible acceleration, but the reason 50 kilometers an hour is exciting on a tank like this is because if you can get it up there using an engine boost or a turbo boost at the start of the game quickly, you can follow out your medium strike force on a flank and absolutely wreak havoc and cause all kinds of pain and consternation to little tanks with little armor profiles on flanks. What's bad about this tank is the armor profile sucks. Okay, let's get that out of the way. The pike nose is too bloody fragile, and your lower glacis is too bloody big. Just more cowbell in this case. It's not good enough. So the way matchmaking works will cause you all kinds of distress, because quite often you will be on maps where there is a one line, as in there is a line that heavies go down. And the only heavy tank at Tier 9 on your team is probably going to be you, and you're going to be facing up against E75s and ST1s and tanks of that nature, which are really legitimate big dogs. They're tough heavies to pen. They'll side scrape, they'll push a one line, and a good E75 driver frontally should be able to nail a good IS-8 driver frontally. You just can't side scrape as well. You just don't have the armor numbers, really. And that's a problem with matchmaking, because whereas you might like to actually leave Rockfield and Copperfield and burn out in the flank with a couple of mediums, if you don't go that top channel and stop the heavy advance in its tracks there, then you will find that you're quickly flanked and you'll have no teammates left by the time you get round and complete your own flanking maneuver. Tough choices, which leads to some tough games in this tank. It's why you'll note I'm platooned in this tank in a couple of the videos with Pimp Daddy and a couple of other guys I platoon with in this tank, and they're driving big heavies that can hold a line, that give you a rock to work off. So you're basically looking, when you're platooning with this tank, you're looking for an anchor. You're either going for a super fast tank that'll lead out and bust ass, or you're going for a big, strong side scraper that can hold a front line while you do the busting of the ass. So let's not muck around too much. We're going to look at two things with this tank before we duck into the armor profile. The first is your gun. Great gun. 258 and 340 pen on your gold, which is exceptionally good for your gold ammo pen. The IS-7, surprisingly, when you move up to the 130mm on the IS-7, only goes to 303 on its gold ammo pen with APCR. So you have better pen on your gold rounds than the IS-7 does. Don't ask me why. Your dispersion at 0.38 is very unrusky-like. You'll see here the 122mm D25T, the Tier 8 gun, is 0.46. The more famous BL9 on the IS-3, the top gun on the IS-3, is 0.40, and you're at 0.38. You still maintain 2.9 seconds of aim time, which is a big, hefty aim time, and leads you into the real controversial equipment decision that I make with this tank. I run a toolbox in nearly all my tanks because of tracks and side scraping and all that, and I do quite often vacillate, go between a vertical stabilizer on this tank and a toolbox. You can see here it looks just as good with a toolbox, and I'm not wasting money here because I'm on the test server and I've got plenty of cash on the test server. Either of those are valid selections. Just so you know, the literature at the moment supports vertical stabilizer versus enhanced gun lane drive. Go and have a look at the testing that's been done by the brilliant boys, girls, humans on the Euro, Asian, and American servers, and check it out. You'll see that you get more benefit from vertical stabilizer across a wider range of situations than you do with an enhanced gun lane drive. Just my 2 cents worth. If you don't believe me, do your own homework. Go to the Google my phone, Batman. So that's your maneuverability and your gun are brilliant. And you've got a great low profile. They're the positives. Let's go and have a look at the armor profile and we'll see a few of the negatives. So here we are looking at the IS-8. Now, some of you Chinese will love this tank because it's got an 8 in the name. I am not with you on that. I don't love it particularly, and it's not because it hasn't got a lucky number. The reason I don't love it is because of this big sea of green at the front. I find that I can make it be useful and worthwhile and succeed and make it a grind that's worth doing, not a grind that's absolute tedium, like a T28 medium or something like that. But it's a rough grind all the same. This is the view of your tank when seen from the perspective of an M103, an enemy heavy tank, simply firing AP. There is no heat going on here. If they go to high explosive, they don't get any benefit because they pretty much can pen you everywhere already. Your turret's reasonable. It's pretty solid, but your hatches are weak, and there is a certain, you can see right there, either side of the gun, there's huge spots in the cheeks there where you can be penned, and I do that all the time when I'm driving guns like E50 weapons and M103s and anything that you can decently aim with. You'll be able to put it through the cheeks. The lower glacis is hilarious. 177mm angled at 53 degrees, 234mm angled at 64. And the reason it's so bad, if you have a look here, it's hard to angle 120mm enough to make it an effective armor profile. So you've got 120mm top, 122mm lower, but the angles just don't support it. You know, 53 and 64, it's not enough. Most tanks are going to be firing down into that frontal glacis, upper glacis from a higher point. It ruins you. What else to look at here? Interesting, you can side scrape a touch on this tank. You have spaced armor on the side as well, which is very sneaky, but you've only got 80mm. So if you've got a side scraping Ken and you really want to get into it, you've got to make sure that you get it right, because it's not a brilliant amount of armor there. If you over angle, you'll struggle, but you do have that spaced armor below it. And why that works really well is it's just along the line of the tracks, and it's very hard to differentiate. So it actually leaves that very, very small part there that is actually your weakest point. If they fire heat and they hit this spaced armor area here and the tracks, you'll just eat the shot, which is great. And it's one of the trollish little things about this tank. It's one of the reasons it's not bad for a brawl, and especially fighting mediums, especially T54s. All the numpties and that who fire premium gold ammo exclusively and run around using it as an overpowered tank, you'll find you'll eat a lot of shots from T54s that are firing gold in the traction and that little nodule there, but not enough to make it a worthwhile effort in my experience. So, I mean, what else do you want me to say? Look at the armor profile. It's rubbish. It is. That frontal armor, it tells you cannot hold a line. Like if you have an E75, let's have a look at an E75 from the same perspective. Look at that. Angle that monger. Angle the monster. Angle. You can side scrape a treat deluxe. Look at that. You side scrape that thing, you are gonna it's just a monster. Let's have a look at the ST1, the Rusky equivalent. Someone's starting their car up near me, would you believe? Look at that. Red. Apart from that big lower glacis, but you can side scrape off that, or you can angle it, or you can hull down. And you've got 8 degrees of negative gun depression there, as opposed to the 5 you get in the IS-8. So, yeah, there's the IS-8. Rough customer in terms of armor. Now, we're going to segue straight to gameplay, because you know what? You've had enough nonsense with me hanging about in the garage and looking at armor profiles. You know about the profile of the tank. You know about the lovely little gun. You know that it's pretty mobile for a heavy tank. All these things you know. What you don't know is how I like to drive it and how I like to use it to be successful. One of the keys with this tank, as with any tank, is when you platoon, it makes life a lot easier. So if you're not platooning, find yourself a friend, get out there and do it. And make sure you pick the right tanks. You can see Pimp here, as we mentioned earlier. Pimp's in an ST1. He has nearly 5k this game. He has a great game, but you can see, wait, me first. We're talking it through. We both know what's going on here. He's got the hit points. He's got the armour. He's going to roll on down the hill and get the job done. I was the shock tank, bust on through, spearhead the whole thing. Just do your best. Know that you've got a bit of an angel on your shoulder with Pimp in the ST1. And from here on in a Tier 10 game, Pimp's going to drive straight down the theoretical one line. In other words, the heavy line. Take these guys on front to front, and I'm going to move out onto the flank. And you can see it start moving here, getting along very quickly, very nicely. We're not going to do a lot of damage here. We're not going to save the world. But this is smart play, and this is what you need to be doing in this tank. It's a terrifyingly difficult tank if you're a beginner, a noob, for lack of a better. We're all noobs once. I mean, I'm no fast twitch, freakish 16-year-old kid who runs around smashing everyone. I just don't have those kind of skills. I'm an old dude. I'm a slow man. I have to be smart about the way I play the game, or I fall in a heap and get hammered. So this is what I do. I look at the situation and I try and assess it, and I try and, the old age and treachery always overcomes youth and skill. It's not true. You don't always overcome it, but you can certainly give yourself a hand. Now I'm going to spot these two here. The Jagdpanzer E100 is looking at me. I am not going to go out there and engage him. What I know is that until he pops on the radar, he's not approaching my platoon mate. Pimp Daddy's down there with the IS-7. He's in an ST1. He's got something to side scrape off. The IS-7's coming towards him. I'm pretty confident he can handle that engagement very well. He's a very good player. He's dropped adrenaline. He's going to handle it. I haven't moved down because the Jagdpanzer E100 hasn't gone into Pimp's line of view yet. So he's probably still looking at me. When he pops on the map, he is then going to be looking at my... There he goes. And you can see he's looking directly at my platoon mate, and I now have shots into his flank, which I promptly missed, but the theory was good. Doesn't always work, but the theory's fantastic. And you can see now we move down, comfortably flank him, and it's all happy days. And this is one of the reasons why this tank, it's not that it requires a high tank IQ, coining a phrase there. It's because you have to have a higher situational awareness, and you have to make good decisions in it. It does not reward, it doesn't give you second chances. You may drive a T95, you may drive an E3, these are tanks that give you second chances. They're not easy penetrations from frontal armor profiles, but this tank is. If you bust ass right through the middle of a map, pretty much everyone you see will be able to pen the front of your tank easily and quickly, and they'll certainly pen the sides of your tank. You can see here I have just dropped the hammer. I am pushing because I've looked at the enemy team's makeup. There's only a couple of tanks here that I'm worried about getting up, and there's only a couple of tanks here that do get up. We've stopped him dead. Pimps knows that I'm going. He's supporting me. The rest of the team gets dragged along. I ignore that VK. I'm going down here. This IS-8 has to go down. Good, solid, fast, aggressive play. And you get rewarded for it. And this is one of the tanks that can do it. You can be the spearhead on those really surprising moves. Things that the other team is not ready for. They're usually like, we'll all come up the top on Copperfield and we'll prepare each other and we'll side scrape off that corner and we'll slowly grind it out and we'll go camp over there and don't do this. It's not what it's about. It's about changing the game, changing it to suit you. You've got to remember this game at all times, more than anything else, is not a one-on-one game. That's why if you look at a tank and you treat every tank exactly the same, you'll fall in a heap. It's why you cannot drive an IS-8 the way you drive an IS-3. It's why you can't drive an IS-7 the way you drive an IS-8. They're not the same tank. Although, come to think of it, you can't got to drive an IS-7 the way you drive an IS-8. But you can see that gun there is I prefer this gun than the gun on the IS-7 by a fair margin too. It used to be a lot bigger a margin actually when the IS-7 had a 3.4 second aim time, but they did drop that to 2.4. Anyway, we digress again. The next one you're going to see is, and this is just examples of good aggressive gameplay using a platoon mate and being successful. And you should be driving this tank with a platoon mate. Or if you don't have a platoon mate, then pick a tank that suits and follow them and support them, whether it's a bunch of mediums or whatever. You can see there I've said smash them, hammer, go as fast as possible. And I am looking at the teams, knowing they've got mediums, they're going to go the top. If we bust ass down here, clean up these heavies, flank their tank destroyers, we'll win the game. And it's a good decision, and it pays off massively. You can see here there's a Jagdtiger there. He's just got set up. We've already knocked off the Black Prince, the poor little tier 7. I'm not going to help back there. I know Pimp's got that one and he's got support coming. We are spanking and flanking this poor old Jagdtiger. He's had about 3 seconds to fire and he's gone. And that's it. We've now completely changed the complexion of the game. We've gone through town, so they no longer get the opportunity to come and use the mobility of the 54 and the Leopard to get behind us and dust us up. And you can see here, I'm on a hiding to nothing, but I've picked one tank. I'm going to make sure that if I go, he's going to go with me, and that's all there is to it. And we do. We get this Leopard. We're manoeuvrable enough to do that while having a T-54 on us, and he's going to get us eventually. But have a look at the score. We've totally destroyed it. Hard and hammered. Hard and harmful. That's how you do it. And I'm only going to make you sit through 3 more maps. One of them is going to be completely fast-forwarded, so don't get too upset. None of these maps are inspiring in the way. I know a lot of the gameplay I've put up in the past has been of incredible games, close games, big damage games. None of these are really that, and I just don't. The tank doesn't spark that for me. We get a very, very nice shot here from the M62 gun. You really have to wait. I'm solo here. I'm not with the platoon mate, so I'm waiting to see what gets put on the table. In other words, where tanks are going to pop, getting some spots, seeing where my services are best going to be used, and right here looks like a good spot. I can fire down there into that T-54. I can hit cap. I know there's a T-43 over there. I'm not worried about him at the moment. He doesn't really have shots on me. He's got his hands full on other things. And I'm just trying to support that pattern, but I see he's a one shot, and that's enough for me. We'll have him. That pattern down there is starting to worry me. This tank can get there. Like, if I decide that is where my services are going to be best used, I can get there. So I know that once that pattern goes, that flank's going to be unprotected. So I immediately move forward and start looking to plug the hole. Good tank like that, very, very much a utility player. It can get in there and do a whole lot of things. It's not the best at anything. It's a jack of all trades. It is probably the best in its tier at getting out and following mediums, and I'll show you how we do that on the next map. But it's got a solid weapon. It's got average. It's got met armor, but you can get there in time to actually find spots that you can hold down or whatever on. And you can see I've dropped the hammer because what I want to do is aggressively get around that corner while I've got a spot on that T-54, hit him, and then just pull the hell back, make him chase me, and hopefully by the time he gets here, my reload's done. He wastes a shot into someone else anyway. And you can see I'm still on AP because I don't want to get stuck while he's moving backwards and forwards, putting a heat shot through the tracks of that T-54. I'd much rather just use the solid pen and wait for a nice shot. So that's a really simple game. And I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm just showing you that you watch for opportunities in the actual gameplay. Like this Object 704, for instance, I'm happy to take a shot from him. I'm going to bust right past him, turn around, get behind him, and get easy points. And he knows he's screwed right there. Just a trap for young players. Never drive a tank destroyer towards someone if you're not going to be able to keep them in front of you. There is no point driving towards trouble if you're not going to be able to keep that trouble in front of you. He drove straight forward. I just went past him. And once I was past him, he was never going to be able to do any damage to me ever again. Now, the next map we look at is going to be a medium charge on the flank of Port Bay. And it's not a particularly exciting map. None of these are. Look, the tank itself is fine. It's a decent tank to grind through if you play it well. It's a horrible tank to grind through if you play it inconsistently or you try and play it like a big, strong, heavy tank. You can follow mediums like this and be involved all day long, and they will thank you for it. There's a T34 plat there. We put our hit point pool on the line. We take some hits for the rest of our team. And remember that that's part of what your job is. You're a heavy tank. You've got a bigger hit point pool than these medium guys. Get in there and utilise it, and basically be a bit of a spearhead. And we roll through here and create all kinds of worry. Nail this T28. Basically draw the fire. You can see he's got no worries whatsoever putting shots through the front of our upper glacis and lower glacis. We've now rolled the flank. There's 3 tanks left and it's all over. But this is how you want to use this tank. Situation arises. You see the teams. You know you've got the 3 medium tanks on your team. You tell them at the start, going flank. And then you all work together and have a big happy party of let's blow the enemy away and be successful and make credits. And that's what it's about. And I mean, this tank isn't the tank you want to grind and hang on to forever. It's not something that I'd play a lot of. There's just too many really good tanks in this game to play something that isn't necessarily going to light your fire every time you play it. It just doesn't float my boat in that way, but it's not a bad tank. Some people love it, but you know, they're the kind of guys who are brilliant at every tank they drive, the guys that love it. It's just not that kind of tank for me. That said, you can see, I think I've got 60% odd win rate in it, and that's not amazing, but it's solid enough to not make it a complete loser of a tank. This is something else it can do. We're on Rockfield, and we've gone to the bunker. The bunker is basically the litmus test for this map. If you win the bunker, you generally win the map. And this T-54 wanted to get up here early and abuse and exploit the camouflage that those bushes and the bunker itself provides by going out, firing shots, and then pulling back till camo drops, going out, firing shots once camo's on, till it drops, etc., etc. We're proximity spotting him. We're well and truly the fastest tank on our team to get up here, and we've absolutely ruined his happy little plan, because now every time we're within 50 metres of this bunker, he pops up on the mini-map. Everyone can see him, and he doesn't get a free... You can see people putting fire into him there. I mean, it kills you as a medium to get up here and have to deal with this kind of rubbish. It really is frustrating, because if I wasn't here, this T-54 would be looking at a massive big damage game. The rest of my team is very, very timid, or they were very timid, but I've given them the freedom to move up comfortably and not have to worry about getting hammered. So it gives us map control, and it allows us to slowly work this guy away, just chisel him away a shot at a time. There's a T-43 over there on the left. I'm going to accidentally fire. There you go. That's an accidental shot. Not very solid, but there you go. They happen to the best of us. But you can see he's waiting for me to fire and then moving down. There's that T-43. He's popped up. We'll have him. Nice solid gun, the M62. And we're just side scraping off a bunk. I mean, it's boring stuff. I'm not saying this is War and Peace here, but it's a low profile tank, so it's hard to hit from the left if anyone is down there at the cap circle. And eventually he's going to make a mistake like he did there. And we start reaping the rewards. And now once we clear this T-54, you know, we've got map control. And that's what you want. It's a simple game, isn't it? It's just such a simple game. It's about winning the right encounters. And these guys at the back have become frustrated. They've been looking for shots. They can't get them. There, you know, and you think you could panic here, but we're just really taking a lot of hits on tracks and on spaced armour. This T-54 is desperate. The object wants to be involved. but we're in a really good spot. It's a very manoeuvrable tank. It's got a great low armor profile. We're not really in any harm's way here at all, and we've got a gun. We can get through there. He doesn't think so, but we do. And now we've got it. This is our game now. We own the bunker. I'm just waiting for camo to set. I can move forward. That guy cannot see me right now. He's spotted. I can do what I want because I am camouflaged behind these bushes and behind this bunker. I'm just trying to set up the gun depression for this shot. He's looking up here. He wants a shot, but he can't see where I am. I mean, this is the key to the game. It's such a simple game sometimes. You've just got to win the important encounters all the time. Don't waste your time on fights that A, you can't win, or B, aren't worth fighting. There's no reason for me to try and charge round this bunker. There's no reason for me to do anything else other than wait. And you can see the frustration on that ISU 152. Why would you push? Because he's had to sit there the entire game while we slowly chip the rest of his team away. And now we can move forward and put our gun depression on the bear. The IS-8's dusted. He's had to repair his ammo rack and everything else. He's in full retreat. We've got a 2-tank advantage. We've got all the territorial advantage. Everyone can advance down there on the left because I've got the top covered. Yeah, great stuff. And this is a perfect tank for doing it. It really is. You can move wherever the battlefield needs you to be. And that's something you can't do in all tanks. And it's got a nice gun on it too. You can see this KV4. They've all been trying to get the business done. We just, didn't really let them. And he doesn't have the gun depression to do anything there, but he's a bit silly, so he keeps driving on a slope and cops an absolute flogging for it. So that's the IS-8, guys. Drive it carefully is the best. That's how you KV4, says Cowfish, the IS-8. Oh, he wasn't happy. I'm just going to ram this bugger. Yes, thank you for coming. That's how you IS-8, team. It's a tough tank. I won't hide the fact that it's a tough tank, that I agree with you that it's a tough tank, but it's not that hard to do if you give it the opportunity to just be itself. You don't want to drive this tank like a heavy. You don't want to drive it exactly like a medium. You want to drive it somewhere in between. You want to support. You want to plug holes in the line as they fill up. You want to flank tank destroyers that are ahead of you that are being held in place by a heavy tank or another tank destroyer. You can do all those things and you can do them at pace. There's something to be said with forgetting about the stats sheet, forgetting about the gun numbers, and just thinking about where you can be on the battlefield that's going to be of the greatest assistance to your team at any point in time. And this tank can move from one spot to the next better than any other heavy tank in its tier. It's not close either. Like, the tank is much, much quicker and can actually reach its top speed on occasion. It holds its speed through turns pretty well for a heavy tank too. It's much more mobile. You've got to take advantage of those situations, and if you don't, the tank will just piss you off. If you try and drive this tank aggressively with no plan, you are going to get absolutely slaughtered and you'll bloody rage sell the thing. Don't let it happen. So I've been Bushka on Blitz. It's a bit short today. No amazing games. I'm sorry if that's a bit of a boring one, boys and girls, but I had to put it out there. So many people have requested it that this IS-8 review absolutely had to be done. Thanks so much. I promise I'm going to try and steer clear of the Russian tanks for a while. The next couple of reviews are going to be Germans or Poms or Yanks. It's probably time to do a few more Yanks. I love doing them. Thanks very much for your support. It was wonderful to have that opportunity to present the Wargaming 1.11 patch preview. There'll be plenty more of that stuff coming down the pipe. We've got a direct connect now to the big boys, and hopefully I can provide some content for you that keeps the old machine thrumming. See you out in the battlefield, team. Look after yourself and stay safe.